Hi guys, how are you doing? I hope you're doing great. Today I actually wanted to tune in and propose something for you girls. I see a lot of us having hard periods and cramps whenever the periods arrive, and therefore there are some poses in yoga that can help us relieve this pain. It's a common belief to stay in bed and do nothing, and ultimately it is sacred to take the time to allow this flow, allow this process to happen inside of us and to take the time off of what we usually do. But this most importantly applies to like the responsibilities we have outside of us. Ultimately, the responsibility of showing up for you and doing what's right for you is still present and is still here. And of course, if that means going to bed and taking a nap, feel free to do this. I know a lot of us like to enjoy being in water as well. But one thing that works for me, and I know it can maybe work for you, is staying static into certain positions where I actually like tune inward and also allow for this process to be smoother by counterbalancing it with different kind of pose. So if you'd like to follow me, just what you'll need for this little flow is actually just one bolster. If you do not have a bolster, you can always get a big cushion. And then 2 blocks, and if you don't have blocks, you can use 2 big books. And I usually I like to have a blanket with me just in case I have really, really long people. So if you're very tall, then you can also grab a blanket or something that you will use in order to support your head when we go into our last position. But so the first position is coming into a child pose, and for that you want to open your knees a little wider, actually much wider than what your hip width is. Bring your big toes to touch behind you and just allow for the sitting bones to reach back and down and release the forehead down. Either keeping the hands in front of you, and if you do this, just release your elbows to the side wide enough so you'd actually feel no sense of engagement and tensions in the shoulders and the trapezes. But you can also bring the arms alongside body and allow the weight of the shoulders to take you down. If for some of you the floor is too far to reach down with the forehead, I can always use a block in order to support my pose. And when you get into this pose, closing down the eyes and start to tune into your breath. See where the breath is coming from, where is it going? And actually lifting the attention from the cramps and the periods itself into tuning back into your breath actually helps for you to calm down. Your system is coming down and therefore everything becomes much smoother as well. So I'll stay here for just another 5 breaths. Allowing for the weight of the upper body to fall down, allowing for the weight of your hips to fall back and down, and just simply melting a little bit more in direction of the earth. Three more breaths. Good, and in your own time, if your hands are not already in front of you, you can bring them back in front of you. And in your own time, you're going to press with your knees and slowly find your all 4 positions. So coming back with both hands underneath your shoulders, both knees underneath your hips. And you're going to keep your eyes closed here and just feel into your body. For just a few breaths, let's say 5 breaths, you're going to allow your body to move you. So there is no particular pose or way or thing I need to do and experience in my body, but just allowing my intuition to take the power and just guide me into poses that kind of feels good, kind of allows me to be a bit more embodied into my feelings, into my sensations. And we'll take just 2 more breaths here, so taking your time. If you feel like pressing down into your downward dog, feel free to do so. If you feel like just staying into all four, that's also very great. And in your own time, very gently making your way back into it, all four position. Both hands underneath your shoulders, both knees underneath your hips. And you're going to plant your toes behind you and just allow for the weight of your body to shift back. Allow for the knees to open up, and we're going to open the feet wide. Allow for the toes to look into opposite directions, so in diagonal, and then release your hips down. So you have to see however comfortable it feels for you, what is the exact distance you want to have in between your feet. If this position is hard for you and you don't actually have the strength to stay up, I could always use a block to sit on, or if the block is too low, I could always get my bolsters to sit on. And what I recommend you to do is to use your elbows to press into your knees, use my knees to press into my elbow, and simply release the sensation in the pelvic area a little bit in direction of the earth. Keeping your eyes closed, and here for 5 breaths. And obviously, if you feel like staying here a little bit longer, you can always pause the video and stay in this pose a little longer, especially if you feel like it's relieving some of your pain. We'll stay for 3 more. Aiming to release the sitting bones down, no tension in the shoulders. Last breath here. And slowly, slowly, allowing the hands to come back down, shifting the weight onto your heels and allowing your toes to look to the front, releasing sitting bones back and down, and using your hands to come into a seat. Feel free to take your own time to transition out of the pose if this transition actually doesn't really work for you. And the next pose that we'll go into is the seated wide-legged forward fold. So take a moment to open your legs to whatever degree makes sense for you. And take a moment to have your knees looking up and your toes are following the same direction as your knees. So a lot of us actually have the knees looking back, others have the knees looking forward. If you can keep your knees looking up, this will help you as well to create some space into your pelvic area and ultimately also ease your cramps. So first of all, we can either stay here if this is enough for you, otherwise you can go ahead and grab a bolster, place it in front of you, and if the bolster is not enough, you can always support your bolsters with block. Inhale, press on your sitting bone, extend your spine up, find length in your spine, and slowly, slowly just allowing the weight of the body to come back and down. And finding whatever position makes sense for you, feel free to first start by engaging your toes, pressing the toes up, keeping the legs extended and engaged, and then releasing down. And when you find your position, just releasing into the legs and the knees. And we're going to stay here for another 5 minutes. So closing down the eyes, I'm coming back up in order for you to hear me better as well. And just seeing wherever the sensations in your body arises. For most of us, it's behind the legs and in the hip areas. May be coming from your lower back as well. Usually is a space that also gets a little bit triggered when we have our period as they work together. So keeping the awareness turned inward. Nothing to do, nowhere to be, but here and now. Using your breath to create some ease into your body. And through each of your exhale, you can simply consciously release the tensions, the limitations, or anything that is no longer serving you right now. We'll stay here for another 5 breaths, using your breath. So slowly, slowly allow for the body weight to fall down. Stand here for 3 more. And in your own time, very gently, using the hands, you're going to come back up into a straight spine, releasing the weight of the spine down into the earth, into the mat, into your ground. Just taking a moment to arrive here. If you did use your bolster, feel free to place it to the side. Use both of your hands in order to bring both of the feet, the legs together. I'm going to actually turn sideways for this one. And we'll go into another position, Paschimottanasana, which is the seated forward fold with legs together. For a lot of us, what happens is their lower back feels like it's literally pulling us back. So if you do have a blanket, feel free to grab your blanket and allow it to come just underneath your sitting bones. If the blanket is not enough, feel free to go for a block. What we're looking to do here is to have the sitting bones grounded and just for the hips to be able to tilt forward. So the pelvis is just a little bit tilting forward, allowing the descent to be a little bit smoother. And what's going to happen is, once again, you can use a support like the bolsters or like blocks if you'd like to support yourself, or you can work with gravity, and this is what I chose to go in this pose. I choose to work with gravity. So on the inhale, you lengthen the arms up, you extend through the spine, sitting bones are grounded. Slowly start to tilt the pelvis forward by pressing sitting bones back and down, and in your own time using the momentum to release down. So a lot of us actually do not want to round the back and stay with a straight spine, pressing the heart forwards, rolling the shoulder back. For this particular period, for this particular sequence, I would encourage you to round your back to allow for the chin to come up to your chest, and most importantly to allow the elbows to come in line with your shoulders so they keep bringing you down. Finding whatever position you arrive into, no need to go further to where you get, staying present with the body and not asking too much out of it, but allowing ourselves to accept what is being available for us today. Allowing yourself to stay here. You can, if you'd like, visualize a waterfall. So every time you exhale, you just find a little bit more depth with your upper body. And we'll stay here for about a minute. If you start to feeling some cramps again or some sensations that are maybe not super comfortable around your lower belly, your hips area and your lower back, using the breath on the inhale, there is always an opportunity for me to create space. And on the exhale, there is always an opportunity for me to let go, release the tensions, the limitations, the uncomfortable sensations that are present in my body. Ultimately, you are in control of what you can do. Stand here for another 5 breaths. Nowhere to be, nothing to do but the here and now. Last 2 breaths. Last breath. And in your own time, allowing for the spine to stay rounded. And you're going to roll vertebrae after vertebrae into coming back up into a seat. Slowly, your head is heavy, taking the time to come back in line with your spine, feeling the weight from the head coming into alignment with the vertebrae, and just finding my center of equilibrium once again through the spine. When the time has come for you, allowing for yourself to shift onto a laying down position. So feel free to remove your blanket. We'll use it after, maybe. Keep your bolster or your block close by, whatever you're using. If you did use a cushion, I would recommend you go for the blocks here because they have a bigger support. And then just coming down into a laying down position. Take it a moment to just place the hands onto the lower belly and taking 3 deep inhales through the lower belly. So inhaling, creating space, and releasing. For 2 more times, inhaling, and releasing. Last time. And releasing. Nice. And so my invitation right now is to extend the legs up and find a sort of inversion. For a lot of us, yoga, and depending what philosophy you follow, it's said that you should not go into inversions when you're on your period. I personally like to give the responsibility to the woman herself. I have found for myself that the first day and the second day, inversions are not the best for me, but then again, after this, it doesn't really matter. So you do whatever makes sense to you. And there's 2 options for this. And actually, if we were to look at Iyengar, they do recommend inversions for people, for women who when they have their period. So again, it's very dependent of what makes you feel good. And so the first option is to stay grounded with your lower back on the floor and to get close to a wall. And I'm going to imagine that I have my wall just in front of me, and I'm going to bend my knees into the chest, get as close to the wall as I can with my hips and lower back, and then extend my legs up, and then just allow for my legs to be leaning on the wall. In this sense, I can simply stay upright and not have anything to do because I'm being supported by the wall. If you do not have a wall, or if you'd like to go into this micro inversion, you can take your bolster or your block or your book and place it right underneath your lower back and your sacrum. And what we're looking to do is to have this tilt in the pelvis once again, allowing for the hips to look up, and therefore I can extend my leg up. And I don't have anything to do to stay in this position, I can just stay there. And when you do find your position, if it's option 1 or option 2, feel free to close the eyes to allow some space to be created in between your shoulder blades, to tune back into your breath, and literally just to allow you the space to be and to express however you feel through the static hold position. Through stillness, there's still so much that can be experienced and felt. There is just no need into manifesting it into words, labels, and so forth, but just staying present to the feeling that arises inside of us. And if we were to just look a little bit about what the period is to the woman, is just an opportunity for a cleanse. So it is a beautiful, beautiful opportunity that is given to us every month for the majority of us. So embracing this process of detoxifications, of purification with an open heart and allowing ourselves to consciously go into this process is ultimately the best thing that you can do right now. Taking the time and embracing what is being offered. We'll stay here for just another 5 breaths, really allowing for the weight of your lower back, of your hips, to be released either onto the mat, the floor, or your block, bolster, or book. Allowing for anything that is no longer necessary into the feet to come back into the organs and be treated, digested, and released. And last 2 breaths here. And slowly, slowly on your exhale, bending down the knees, allowing for the heels to come back down in direction of your glutes. If you did use a bolster, option to simply roll the bolster out or the block out or the book out, and just take a moment with both feet back on the ground, knees stay bent, and just allowing for the knees to fall into one another. The feet are open to the width of your mat, or maybe even a little wider. Stand here for just 2 breaths. Last breath. And slowly, slowly allowing for the feet to come back together, either rolling onto one of your sides, transition into a seated position in order to come up. And my personal favorite when I'm experiencing my periods and I need a moment for myself is this Supta Baddha Konasana pose, where we will use all of the props. So like I did mention before, if you're a very long person and you have a long spine, feel free to use an extra support for your head. And I also like to use, and I would recommend you to use, blocks in order to support your knees. So you want to bring your lower back as close to the bolster as you can. And we're actually going to sit onto the edge of the bolster with the lower back. So pressing the glutes to the front and down, allowing for the lower back to be long, and then unrolling spine, vertebrae after vertebrae, until I find all of my spine released onto my bolster. Once I have this, I'm looking to have my head just a little bit higher than the rest of my body. So I'm going to create this extra support for my head with my blanket, allowing the chin to look down, for the heart to open up, and the shoulders to drop to the floor. Once I have this, I can come with the sole of my feet to touch, releasing the knees to the side, and see what is the maximum for you. Whenever you get to the maximum, press the hips up, glutes to the front, and release down. This creates space into your lower back and actually allows you to find a pose that is a little bit more suited for you. Once you have this, when you find the maximum that is being able to open in between your knees, bring your blocks closer to what actually you could have them as a support. You don't want your knees to open too much. You don't even want your knees to open to what you can open them. In order to create a soft spot for the pelvis and for the pelvic area, just keeping the space very soft and not stretching it. This is why we have supports, and we keep a little bit of a comfort zone here where we can allow things to happen in their own time at their own pace. So whenever you find your position, once again, making sure that you're not looking up with your chin is looking down in direction of the chest, shoulders are rolling down and back, heart is opening, knees are being supported, sole of the feet to touch, and the lower back is not crisp, meaning I am not compressing my lower back, but I keep my lower back long. And when you find this position, once again, feel free to close the eyes, to tune into your breath, and to allow whatever needs to be happening in the body to happen. I would recommend that you create just a little bit of space in between your lips in order to release the muscles of your face, the tensions that are maybe present in the neck and the throat and in the jaw. And just imagine that the skin of the forehead is slowly, slowly being completely released in direction of the earth. And I would recommend that you stay in this position for however long it feels good for you. If you feel the need to lay on your back into your Shavasana, so corpse pose, after this pose, feel free to do so. You don't need to, as this is a resting pose, and if you set it up correctly, you should feel very supported. And when you finish your practice, slowly taking the time to get out of your bubble, drink some water, and stay true to yourself.